The sheriff didn't just pull the plug on Karen's house. He flipped the whole script on a saga that turned my quiet ranch into the wildest circus you've ever seen. And if you could have stood right there with me when the sheriff's hand wrapped around that tangled orange cord and killed the power to her Christmas lights, her pool, her tanning bed, her popcorn machine, and yes, even her precious karaoke stage, all while 200 guests gasped and Karen howled like a banshee in the dark, well, you'd understand why I have to back up and tell you how we ever got here. Because this wasn't just some neighbor squabble about loud parties or stray cattle. It was a battle over who really runs this patch of Texas. And it started, as these things always do, with a little nagging suspicion, a spike in my electric bill, and a woman who thought rules were for everyone but her. You know what I mean? I'd been running my ranch for decades. Beef in the freezers, water pumps chugging, lights burning late so I could check the fences. But that summer, something fell off. The bills climbing hundreds of dollars higher in a week, barn lights flickering like some haunted carnival, and every time I thought it must be just another aging wire, I'd look out my kitchen window and catch Karen's property lit up like New Year's in Vegas. Christmas lights twinkling in the middle of August, her pool shimmering. Long past midnight, her garage beaming like she was launching satellites for NASA, and in my gut I knew it wasn't just bad luck. Karen, if you've never met the type, count your blessings. Ran the local HOA with an iron clipboard and a chip on her shoulder, always hassling me about my barn's rustic aesthetic or my unruly grass. But suddenly she was all smiles, dropping off cookies she'd clearly bought, faking interest in my cows. Only on the days my bill spiked, I noticed. That's when I started keeping a notebook, tracking every surge. Every time her property glowed brighter than the county fair, while my pumps choked and the barn lights died. And a pattern showed itself as plain as day. Every time I lost power, she was throwing some kind of bash, sprinklers twirling, margarita machine humming, music thumping through the night, and it was too much to be a coincidence. Now, I know how crazy it sounds. Who would be brazen enough to siphon electricity across the fence? But this was Karen, queen of the HOA, a woman who fined her neighbor for planting tulips instead of roses and argued that community covenants trumped private property. So one night, I grabbed a flashlight and walked my fence line, dog at my side, heart thumping, and sure enough, there it was, an orange extension cable, thick as a snake, tucked under branches, humming softly as it fed right from my breaker box across the line into her property. Standing there, I laughed and cursed at the same time, realizing she hadn't just stolen a little juice, she'd built her own mini power grid off my ranch, even wiring a secret breaker box labeled pool, clubhouse, spa, and guest house. All of it humming away while I worried over bills. I watched from the shadows as a handyman dragged soda cases for her next party, inflatables bobbing in the dawn, everyone hooked to my stolen line. The audacity almost impressed me, but I knew if I just stormed over, she'd twist it. She always did. She'd spin the story to the HOA, play the victim, maybe even fine me for harassment. So I swallowed my pride and started planning, snapping photos, gathering proof, tracking every spike. Every night her property glowed. I felt more determined, even as the strain on my equipment grew. My generator coughed and died. The cattle almost went thirsty one week, and I realized her greed wasn't just a nuisance. It was putting my ranch at risk. She kept escalating, too, throwing impromptu HOA meetings, running food trucks and bounce houses, karaoke parties, movie nights, all powered on my dime. She even sent a letter, stamped with the HOA seal, fining me $300 for a failure to provide community power access. You can't make this stuff up. At the coffee shop, board members parroted her nonsense back at me, saying power sharing was in the bylaws, and I should be proud to contribute. I bit my tongue so hard I nearly drew blood. And then came the twist. One morning, a new face showed up at Karen's party, a guy named Walt, who claimed to be a community infrastructure consultant. I didn't buy it for a second, not with his city shoes and the way he stuck too close to Karen, whispering and pointing at my fence line. That night, after the party died down, I caught him sneaking around near my water pump. He claimed he was checking on the community connection. I threatened to call the sheriff, and he left in a hurry, but not before I snapped his picture and added it to my growing file. My evidence folder grew thick: photos, drone shots, wattage monitors I bought from the hardware store, even screen captures of Karen's ridiculous emails boasting about solving the energy crisis for the HOA. I called a friend with a drone and got footage of her breaker box, the orange cable, even a night shot of her movie screen glowing on my juice. Every page, every reading made my anger sharper, my patience thinner. But I waited, because I knew I needed an airtight case. Finally, when the bills reached a level that could have paid for a new truck, I took it all to the sheriff. He was a no-nonsense guy, not much for small talk, but as I laid out every chart, photo, and that fake HOA fine letter, I saw his eyes narrow, his jaw clench. Turns out, he'd suspected something for months. Karen's own meter was barely moving while mine spun like a tornado, but he'd had nothing solid to act on. Now, with my evidence, he grinned for the first time, and we made a plan. The big showdown was set for the HOA Summer Bash. Karen went all out. Live band, food trucks, a bounce house. Her yard packed with 200 neighbors and board members, the place glowing with spotlights, karaoke booming. I watched from my porch, the air humming with stolen power, every light on her property shining while my own barn flickered dangerously. And then, just as the party hit its peak, Karen on stage in a pink dress and glittery HOA sash, crowing about community innovation, the band riffing, the crowd cheering. The sheriff's truck rolled up, lights flashing. He walked right through the crowd, ignored Karen's frantic welcome, and headed straight for the hedge where her secret breaker box was hidden. He knelt, pulled aside the fake rocks, held up the thick orange cable, and turned to the crowd. "This entire party," he said, voice booming, "is powered illegally by electricity stolen from the ranch next door." Silence. Then gasps, people standing, eyes wide. Karen tried to laugh it off, waving her binder, insisting it was all a misunderstanding, that the bylaws permitted community utilities, but the sheriff wasn't having it. He showed the evidence, page after page, drone photos, readings, even the fake fine letter. The crowd turned. Some guests shouted, others muttered about lawsuits and ruined evenings. And then, with the whole county watching, the sheriff yanked the breaker, sparks flying, music dying, bounce house collapsing in slow motion, kids tumbling out squealing, the party swallowed in sudden darkness. Karen shrieked, tried to plug the cable back in, but the sheriff blocked her path and warned her, "One more move and you're under arrest." That was the crack in her armor. The queen was dethroned, and her board members slipped away, leaving her standing alone on stage, a sad parody of power. The next days, the whole county buzzed about it. People stopping me at the feed store, retelling the moment the bounce house fell, Karen's banshee scream, the sheriff's victory pose. But I wasn't surprised when, within a week, Karen was back at it, filing appeals, writing angry letters, even sneaking over late one night with a new, thinner extension cord trying to tap my barn. I caught her red-handed, my new security light blasting her in full view, camera snapping her like a caught raccoon. The sheriff roared with laughter when I showed him the footage, promised more fines, but by now, her power was gone. No one feared her anymore. Her board dissolved, her supporters vanished, and the county posted a notice. The HOA, as it once was, no longer existed. Life returned to its rhythm, barn lights steady, pumps humming, my wallet healing. But I never relaxed, not fully. Karen lingered next door, plotting, trying new stunts, but every attempt fell flat. One final twist. At the county fair, the sheriff himself told the story of the summer blackout on stage, volunteers reenacting Karen's downfall, the crowd howling as a guy in a wig and plastic crown played the queen. The story became legend, a parable about arrogance and justice, and I realized sometimes you don't need revenge, just a little patience, a good sheriff, and the right timing to let the world see the truth for themselves. Now, every time I walk past the spot where that orange cable once snaked over my fence, I feel lighter. And if you ask me what I learned, it's this. Justice might take its sweet time, but when it comes, when that plug gets pulled, when the crowd gasps, when the one who thought they ran everything stands exposed under a single, honest light, it's worth every flicker, every surge, every sleepless night. The story's out there now, folks still arguing over whether the sheriff went too far, whether Karen deserved a second chance, whether I should have shared community power in the first place. But that's the beauty of it. Real justice doesn't end the debate, it starts it. So tell me, What would you have done? Was I right to wait, or should I have stormed over sooner? Drop your thoughts below, share your stories, because this is one blackout nobody's going to forget.